Yeah, I mean, how can I spend 8 months without working with a baby on the way? I was, talking to a Buddhist friend, and they encouraged me, like, hey, like, make up your mind. Like, what do you really want? Definitely a lot of learning. One of the main things was just having that reassurance that I do have power over the circumstances in my life. And, I have everything that I need, within me to be able to overcome any obstacles.
From SGI USA, I'm Cassidy Bradford, and this is Buddhability, the weekly series where I talk with Buddhists from all walks of life about the power we each have to change our lives and the world around us. Welcome, Everton, to Buddhability. It's great to have you here after your long work day. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing about your incredible story and really interesting kinds of ups and downs of your life and where you're at now. So just to get things started, I'll have you introduce yourself so you can just share a little bit about who you are and just your life growing up.
Yes, of course. So my name is Everton Carvahlo. I'm 26 years old. I'm originally from São Paulo, Brazil. That's where I was born and raised. And I was also born into this practice. So my mother has been practicing for over 30 years. And
Wow.
So I kind of grew up, within the Buddhist community in Brazil. I have been immersed in it for for as long as I remember. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah. Was there any point in your life that you really started to deepen your Buddhist practice? Like growing up around it, I know some folks are like, I just, from a really young age, I was always chanting and it always felt like I was Buddhist. And some other folks, it kind of, can take some time. So what was your experience?
Yeah, so I kind of had the same experience. I used to go to meetings a lot with my mom, just kind of followed her around. And we also used to host, neighborhood meetings at our house every week. So, no escape. I was always there, setting up the seats and everything. And I think, it was at the time more of my mom's practice than my own. And I think it wasn't until I moved to the United States back in 2016 for college that I think I really got a chance to try it for myself, experiment for myself, the power of this practice. So I think that was kind of the point. Definitely had a lot of challenges moving here, starting college, adapting to everything. And lots of ups and downs, lots of downs. And this practice was definitely what helped me kind of get through all of that. And I mean, everything in between, honestly.
Yeah. What was the adjustment like of, going to growing up in Brazil in a pretty large Buddhist community to, I know you ended up going to college in maybe a more rural place. So what was it like, that kind of, I'm sure culture shock in so many ways. What was that like?
It was great. It was a great learning opportunity. A lot of growth happened around that time. And I moved to central West Virginia. That's where I went to college for 4 years. And definitely, different from São Paulo. We got 13 million people living in that city. And then I moved to a town with maybe 7,000 people, very small college, different culture, the food, everything is different. Of course, the language barrier. I knew some English, but, definitely had room for improvement. Back then, still do.
Yeah.
But the weather as well. The weather was a big challenge. I remember my first winter there. We hit one night maybe negative 20 degrees. So it was
no
rough. Lots of snow. But it was a multitude of things that kind of made it difficult, and of course missing family and friends and your old lifestyle, and the challenges with school and also being a student athlete, many things, financial difficulties as well. everything just kind of compiled and made it very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like practicing Buddhism without your mom around? Like you had mentioned that through those kind of 4 years that, you had all of these like ups and downs, that was really the time that it kind of became your own practice. Was there any one moment where you felt like, or any one particular challenge where you felt, this is like really my own practice? Or was it like a accumulation of maybe several like smaller kind of moments?
I think it was an accumulation of moments. There were, I think, things that, not necessarily challenges, but I think things that led me to be more interested in devoting more of my time and just myself in general to this practice. I think one of them was in West Virginia, there are some incredible members, and they took such good care of me when I was up there. One of them being this lady called Hiromi. Basically, she would drive, to pick me up to go to a meeting, and she actually lived about an hour and a half away. And then the meeting we were going to was 3 hours away. And so she would drive an hour and a half down to pick me up, 3 hours north to go to the meeting, and then back to my place to drop me off, then back to her place. And mind you, she, was already like in her 70s. So I don't know where she got the energy from. And she, I would offer to drive and all of that, but she wouldn't let me. And, I don't know where she got all the energy. I guess I do know, just many years of practice and chanting and all of that, just a different kind of life condition. So I was really inspired by her and some of the other members there as well. And really became, more intrigued and really wanted to experiment, with it and just experience it in my own life. What it's like to have that kind of life condition, that kind of energy, that kind of sense of, mission and purpose in your life. So that was one thing. And then, from that, I think I started to become a little bit more involved locally with SGI activities. And one of the big things that happened, one of the first big benefits that I had, kind of just for myself, was after my freshman year. I was trying to transfer schools, mostly because of the program that I was looking for. They didn't have that at the first school I went to. And also because I wasn't really having the best time there. Like I said, it really was a hard time adapting that first year. And I was there playing soccer. I was on a soccer scholarship. Soccer wasn't going that well or as well as I expected. So I was just kind of ready to make a move. So I decided to transfer schools and I put in a transfer request. And so, end of freshman year, I go home for the summer and I'm negotiating with different schools. I receive a few offers to transfer schools, but nothing that was actually good enough. And one of the things was the financial aspect. I really wasn't going to be able to go back to my school because, that first year was already a lot on me and my family financially. So, I was really chanting to be able to overcome this obstacle somehow. And but nothing was coming out of it. So I spent pretty much the whole summer just kind of chanting, but at the same time, like, what's going to happen? I'm not really sure. And I did start to become a little bit discouraged because I remember it was already like we were in August already of 2017. And I hadn't found anything. Like, season's about to start, school's about to start again. I hadn't found anything, and I'm like, oh my God, like, did I, mess up, made the wrong decision? Am I gonna be able to go back to the US and, continue my education there? So my mom pulled me and said, hey, let's go to the Gohons and like stop overthinking, stop worrying about it, let's just chant about it. I think she mentioned like just your heart is what really matters. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to chant with my heart and forget about everything. And I remember that week we were chanting a lot of, Daimoku, which is, reciting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. And I remember this one time we were sitting down chanting, and I received a text from my former assistant coach at the school, that I did my first year. And he basically asked me, hey, Everton, how's everything going? Have you found a school to go to yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. Why? It was kind of, out of the blue that he messaged me. He was like, well, we brought this guy to replace you, this other goalkeeper from Sweden. And he came here and started, practicing with us during preseason. And after 3 days, he decided it wasn't for him and he wanted to go back to Sweden. So he's flying back this week. We need another goalkeeper and it's too late to recruit somebody else. So we want to know if you want to come back. And I was like, whoa, just mind blown, But then there was also the financial aspect still. And I told him, I was like, hey, I would love to, but here's my situation. So he said, well, let me, talk to some people and then I'll get back to you. So we finished that conversation and I was like, oh, wow, let me go back and chant some more. So I told my mom and we're like, yes, this is it. It's working. So we chanted more and more and more. And then I think maybe the day after he got back to me, he was like, okay, so I talked to these people. We were able to increase your scholarship by this much. And it was just enough that it was possible for me to go back and continue my education. So within a week, I was on a plane back to the U.S. To continue my education. And with a better scholarship. That also happened to be the year that I think it was the best year I had in my soccer career. And one of the best things too was just, I think with that process, I was really able to kind of shift my mindset on, the place where I was. I think I was like placing, blame on all these different things that were making me unhappy. And I just decided to, I really want to focus on me and I want to focus on the people around me. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm, having the best experience I can have and really focus on the things I can, really control. And so since I had that kind of shift in my mindset, I think everything just kind of changed from, night to day. But I think it was really something that came from the chanting as well. Not only that, benefit specifically of the scholarship, but just really helped me open my mind a little bit more to the fact that I have a lot more control over my environment and how I feel, rather than not. So, yeah.
It's like a perfect example of like conspicuous benefit, which is like, we get the job, we get the, scholarship, whatever, and inconspicuous, which is more like the kind of life state that we develop, the characteristics we develop. So you get this both like, material benefit. And I think like, of course you transformed like your perspective on the school. And I imagine too, like having this kind of experience, you must have also learned like, wow, even when it looks desperate, like nothing's going to happen if I keep pushing forward. There's going to be, some kind of breakthrough, even if it's like a week before you're like starting school.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really incredible. And so then I know, of course, you're still in the U.S. So what happened, like when it came time to graduate? I know for many like international students, thinking about next steps is kind of like, intimidating. It's a big task. So like, what did that process look like for you?
Oh, that was also a whole process. I graduated in December of 2019. And so, right before the beginning of a certain global pandemic that we went through. And so I remember at the time, I had this 1 year visa extension and I had 90 days to find a job. But I also found myself in a situation where every interview that I had was either canceled or postponed or just, everything was just not there anymore. So I kind of found myself again in a bit of a desperate situation. I kind of turned that into my full-time job, was looking for jobs or internship opportunities and all of that. I once again was facing the situation where I kind of felt like there was no way out. Like I really need to, push through this and somehow, be able to find something. I think one thing that this practice also helped me with was it helps us tackle things more from a faith perspective as well as, a logistics standpoint.
Yeah.
You really tend to like overthink things and just like plan A, B, C, D, and like try to take action, which you should do, obviously. But without that faith part of it, it's also very challenging. So I just started to really chant about that as well. And, you know, I was trying to figure out if I was going to stay, if I was going to go back to Brazil. And I was, you know, talking to a Buddhist friend, and they encouraged me like, hey, like, make up your mind. Like, what do you really want? You know, if you can't make up your mind, the universe can help you. So I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find something, you know, like if my mission is really to stay here in the US and continue doing what I'm doing, I'm going to be able to find something. And so with that 90-day deadline and, you know, also chanting again a lot of Daimoku, I think 10 days before I hit the deadline, I was able to land this internship that basically allowed me to stay. I was like, okay, the first victory is here. You know, let's focus on the rest later. So, you know, I was actually pretty encouraged by that, like, you know, just kind of believing until the last minute that things can shift. So I think these experiences really teach you to just, you know, never give up, like just keep going, and something will definitely happen. And so from that, I think like I just started to develop a stronger and stronger sense of, you know, power that, you know, myself, that I myself have power to transform things. Yeah, everything kind of worked out for me to stay that year. And then I made the decision that I was going to go to grad school as well here in the US. So I applied for a few different programs in 2020. I got accepted. And then beginning of 2021, that's when I moved from West Virginia to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for my master's degree. And I'm still here in Baton Rouge. It's been 4 years now, and it's been great. So, yes.
Wow. I have to ask, you shared like in searching after graduation for this, you know, internship or job, that your friend said like you just have to decide. And I'm wondering, like, how do you do that? You know, sometimes I have so much doubt. So like for somebody listening that's like, oh, okay, like I know I need to decide, but like where does that like come from in your life, and what does it feel like to have that shift from like kind of wishy-washy to like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. I think when you chant, you really do have this clarity. You gain this clarity on the things that you're going through, the things that you're thinking about, because you know, the thing with chanting is that it's a very active process. So you're really like thinking about all the things that are happening in your life and how you want to transform this, how you want to win over this obstacle or achieve this goal. So your brain is, you know, going like a million miles an hour sometimes. And as you're chanting, like I said, you gain that clarity. And I think that was the first step for me, at least, to really understand what it is that I actually want. Because before I was just kind of like, yeah, I want this, but, you know, wasn't really too sure, wasn't really making, you know, maybe as many efforts or the right efforts to make that happen. And so I think the first thing was that, just kind of deciding, okay, this is really what I want. And I think once you're able to get there and figure out what it is that you really, like, your heart really desires, I think having that clarity will help you with the rest of the process. I think it becomes a little bit easier. And as you're chanting and you develop that rhythm of chanting, especially like chanting daily, we also, you know, have amazing study materials that are also very encouraging, and just being involved with, you know, the SGI community. Everybody's so supportive, and, you know, when they know you're going through something, they also, you know, encourage you. So I definitely got a lot of encouragement from my friends. And I think all of that just kind of snowballs into this, you know, this ball of like, yes, I can do this. Like, this is what I want. And, you know, maybe I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to do my best. And, you know, something ought to come out of this. So I think that's kind of how it happened for me, at least, to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, that was like so clear. I was just thinking like, oh yeah, that makes me like I'm remembering all of the different experiences I've had, you know, where you're starting out like, okay, not totally clear always, and like as you chant, like you said, every day, and you're studying, like each moment kind of is this building momentum, I think, like Yeah, and sometimes before I start chanting, even if yesterday I was like, I'm going to make it happen, then the next morning I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. But by the time I finish chanting, I'm back to like, okay, I'm going to make it happen. Yeah, it can be like, it can be a battle sometimes, but I think, you perfectly described like this experience of chanting and really what it gives us. So you make it to Louisiana for graduate school, and I understand at some point around 2023, right, was probably like a very, how do I say this? Like, it was probably one of the most turbulent since coming to the U.S. So maybe you can just tell me, like, how did that year unfold? And, I know that was a couple of years after you started graduate school, too. So, if there's any lead into that, please feel free. But, yeah.
Wow, 2023, quite the year. I had just finished my program in December of 2022. So lots of changes were happening in my life. Like I said, I had just graduated, and I, luckily was able to land a new job fresh out of school. So I was really excited about that. The job was in New Orleans. So I moved from Baton Rouge to New Orleans, January of 2023. So, just lots of things like you're fresh out of school, new job, new city. And of course I knew, a lot of SGI members in New Orleans. But other than that, I really didn't know anybody. So, you still very much have that feeling of like, I'm moving to a new place, even though it's not far away. And at the time I also became a lot more involved with SGI activities, also due to the proximity to, there's a local SGI center in New Orleans. So just lots of things, adapting to a lot of things. Some of the things also weren't very great. One of them being that in October, the year before, 2022, that's when my dad shared with me that he had a cancer diagnosis. He was diagnosed with a lymphoma. And so he was battling through that. And I think that was one of the things that, when I started the year of 2023, I was like, I really want to do my best to, support myself, but also support the people around me, my community, the SGI community as well, like do my best to, in Buddhism, we always talk about practicing for ourselves and practicing for others. And so I really wanted to do that also as a way to just kind of build more fortune in my life, as we talk about in the SGI, also for my dad as well. And one of the things with all of that was that, my dad and I kind of had an interesting relationship before, a really good relationship. But at the same time, there was a little bit of a distance. At the same time, like since I moved to the U.S., with my mom, like we FaceTime every single day. Like we maybe missed a few days here and there all these years. And, with my dad, after being here for, several years, maybe we had 2 calls, and so... I always felt like there was this disconnect. And so, I think back then I used to be more of a victim of that situation. And, one of the things that I was chanting about was to kind of transform my relationship with my dad, after his diagnosis specifically. And I think we were really able to do that. Something that another Buddhist friend shared with me is that, with relationships, it's not just one person in the relationship. You're also in a relationship. You own that relationship as well. So you do have the power to transform it. And so basically I started to, everything that I was kind of expecting him to do, I started doing it myself. I started just calling him out of the blue and just checking in on him and opening up more and just sharing everything that was going on. Even if he didn't ask me, even if, he wasn't showing that much interest, I still wanted to kind of build that. And I think it was because of that, being able to really get closer to him in that aspect, that he, I think he felt comfortable enough to share with me about his diagnosis. I was the first person he told. He hadn't told anybody. And it had been a few months already since he had the diagnosis. So I was just really thankful that, I was able to have that shift and transform our relationship with him. And we became a lot closer those months. Yeah, so that started to change. And then, but, I think in April, actually last week, marked 2 years since he passed from that cancer. But, you know, just reflecting on all of that, I really think about like how, you know, when you kind of take the reins of your own life, you can really transform a lot of things. And, you know, it was kind of a short period of time, but it really felt like, even though you know, we had that distance, the physical distance, I think we got a lot closer than maybe we ever were before. You know, that was a huge thing. And then plus I was also just coming out of a relationship that was kind of challenging and, you know, a little bit difficult. And, you know, I also had a process of chanting about that as well, and just realizing that, you know, I think before I used to be like, you know, I really need to make this relationship work. And, you know, I think I was associating my happiness with that relationship. So, you know, I was kind of sweeping things under the rug and just letting things happen because of, you know, of that association. But, you know, through chanting, I was really able to open my eyes a little bit more and realize that, you know, I didn't need that to, you know, feel happy, to feel fulfilled, to feel, you know, complete. And so kind of develop the courage to seek what's actually, you know, best for my life as well. So that was taking place as well. So just lots of things happening around that time. After he passed, you know, I was here in the U.S. by myself, you know, in an apartment by myself, in a new city, away from all of my family. You know, I don't have any family here in the United States. And so it was difficult, you know, just even thinking about like I wasn't there, you know, when it happened, you know, I'm not there to support my family. Yeah, I think getting through that was only possible because of all the support that I had from my SGI friends, and of course from chanting a lot of Daimoku and studying, you know, the Buddhist view on life and death as well, to have a better understanding of the situation. And I think that kind of helped me get out of this, you know, kind of a depressive state that I had that year. And yeah, you know, that was part of 2023. Things definitely got a lot better towards the end.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing all of that, especially like, yeah, with me and for the listeners. But I think it's interesting, like, yeah, sometimes life happens that it's like, wow, like all of these things are like kind of happening all at the same time, and it can be incredibly like just overwhelming. And I think, you know, I find for myself, like those times in my life have been like, yeah, these like really low lows, but somehow I think because I practice, it helps me like deepen something in my life. I don't always know what it is right away, but I somehow can like still create value from these things. It doesn't like mean that I'm not sad about them or they didn't, you know, cause me all this like distress or whatever, but I can at least like create something from it. I'm wondering, like, throughout that year, as you're like, you know, grieving your father and also like in a sense like grieving a relationship, what was like, I don't know, like your day-to-day life like? Did it feel like every day was a battle, or were there like, you know, ebbs and flows? And yeah, how did you like keep forward, you know, each day? Yeah,
I think every day was more than one battle.
Yeah.
It just felt like several battles a day at first. I think, like I said, the support that I had was really incredible from my SGI friends. You know, they will come and chant with me at my place or invite me to chant at their place. And, you know, chanting always made me feel good, better than, you know, when I started. Just kind of refreshed and sometimes just calmer too. Yeah, you know, honestly, like I received a lot more support from my SGI family. You know, I really call them my family because they really are. And I think in that moment specifically, they proved that to be the case even more so than ever. You know, they were checking on me, even just, you know, maybe bringing me food or taking me out to eat or just doing anything to like make me feel a little bit better. They just made sure that, you know, I knew that I had support and that, you know, I was gonna go through that. You know, it was gonna be okay at the end. So I just kept, you know, chanting every day as much as I could. I kept reading a lot. I think, during that time. I already had a little bit of an understanding of the Buddhist view on life and death before, but this was definitely the most, painful scenario that I've ever had. So I think that also prompted me to dive a little bit deeper and to have, seek a deeper understanding of it. That did help a lot to navigate through that. And so kind of like you were saying before, I think I just started looking for ways to create value out of that situation. And in Buddhism, we talk about how life and death are, one, and how life is eternal. I think like a lot of people talk, maybe, outside of Buddhism, people talk about like, maybe a loved one that passed being kind of like a guardian angel or somebody out there like looking out for you and protecting you. But in Buddhism, it's a little bit different. We actually are the ones like praying for them. And, I was reading about how we can pray for their, eternal happiness, even after they have passed. And so I really focused on that, kind of following that theme of taking, the responsibility into my own hands of like, how can I ensure that my dad is happy even after he passed? So I just chanted a lot of Daimoku for him. Sometimes, I would just chant. Sometimes I would just, sit in front of my gohonzon, the scroll that we chant to. Sometimes I would just talk to it like I was talking to my dad, all these different things. And, with time, things started to get better little by little. I also really made the decision that I wasn't going to let that, completely take me off of the things that I was doing. I really wanted to continue to be involved with my SGI activities. In the, this darkest moment of my life, I tried as much as I could to look for opportunities to focus on other people as well, and not just, kind of like close myself in a bubble and wait until everything is over for then, like start going out there again and trying to take some action. And that does help a lot when you're able to expend your life in that way and, focus on helping others as well. I think that was a key part of coming out of that, kind of feeling victorious and happy again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like from folks that I've talked to, especially like for the podcast, who have had like a loved one pass, the like process of grief is not just like this linear thing, but I really appreciate like you mentioning that like trying to take care of others, because I think of course there's like this balance, like we really have to take care of ourselves, don't neglect ourselves, but at the same time I find like when I'm really like sort of just really steeped in whatever I'm like feeling horrible about, like when I can look at the person in front of me, it kind of like just opens that up a little bit. Like my worldview, my life, my heart opens, I feel a lot different. So I'm like really, that really resonates with me a lot. So maybe one more question I have till we like go into the following year. What would you say were like maybe the biggest learnings you had about yourself that year?
Yeah,
Sorry, it's a big question.
It is a big question. There was definitely a lot of learning. I think one of the main things was just having that reassurance that I do have power over, all the circumstances in my life. And, I have everything that I need, within me to be able to overcome any obstacles. I think, even in a situation like that, I think, there's still a lot of value that you can create out of that. I personally tend to, whenever I'm going through something that's a little bit more difficult or, just different obstacles, I always try to think about, okay, what am I going to create out of this? Like, what's the good that I'm going to make out of this situation? Who can I encourage, once I'm able to overcome the situation? Or not even once I overcome it, but as I'm going through it, like, how can I really use this experience as a way to show to other people that, hey, like, this is happening, but I'm still here. Like, and I'm going to stay here. I'm not going anywhere. And, I'm going to come out on top of it. There were certainly moments where, kind of questioned a lot of things, after my dad passed, and part of the kind of the depression a little bit as well that came with that. just a lot of doubts appear in your head and in your heart.
Totally.
But I think just staying consistent with everything, you're really able to see again like how much value your life has. And just even thinking about, you know, like what my dad would want for me to be, you know, experiencing at this moment, or what he would like for me to be doing. And so, you know, with everything that I do, I really try to think about that as well whenever I can. Just in a way, like living, you know, certain dreams and, you know, having certain experiences as a, you know, imagining that he's living, you know, those as well through me in a way, you know. But like you said, it definitely comes and goes, you know, it's kind of like waves. But I think, you know, that being the most difficult moment of my life and being able to overcome that, I think, you know, I definitely know that there's nothing that, you know, that we can't overcome. And so I think that gave me a new level of courage, a new level of inner strength, that, you know, I feel very prepared for, you know, anything that, you know, life might throw at you, knowing that I have everything inside of me is the most empowering thing and the most comforting thing to me, that I can think about. So, you know, I feel a little bit better about just life in general when I know that I have that kind of power. So,
you know, like there's totally this feeling of like, oh, but I can count on myself. Like, I know if things get really dark and I might be totally doubting in so many ways, I know that I have it in me to be able to, because now I've seen firsthand, like I can totally, you know, really face anything. And you mentioned like, you know, new life experiences and thinking about your dad, like being there for those kind of, life changes and experiences. Maybe we can talk about what happened kind of into the next year, some like big changes in your life.
Yes. Yeah, we just talked about changes and yeah, I didn't think, you know, there were any more changes coming, but there were.
Yeah.
One of them being that, you know, I met somebody, just the most incredible human being on this planet. We, you know, met through mutual friends and, you know, got really close, started dating, all of that. And we ended up getting married at the end of 2023.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been the best experience. So beginning of 2024, you know, we moved in together. That's how I ended up moving back to Baton Rouge and started living together and all of that. And at the time, I was also going through a visa adjustment process. So, you know, kind of changing that as well. So big things happening. And then a little bit later on, you know, a little bit deeper into 2024, we found out that we were expecting a little baby. Yes. And yeah, so
oh my gosh, wow.
As of October of 2024, I became a first-time dad. Yes. And it's been just the most incredible thing I've experienced in my life, and just the most joyful, just the most amazing thing I think anybody could experience, in my opinion. So it was definitely a shift.
Yeah. Very big shift.
Yes. Full 180.
Wow. When you found out, you know, you guys were expecting, you had this baby on the way and your visa situation was still like in flux, that must have been, I'm imagining, a little stressful. Like, did you have a job at the time?
So at the time, no.
So that's as you know, scary.
Yeah, very much so. I was like, oh great, yeah. So we're pregnant. I'm currently not working.
joyful, scary.
You know, yeah. So, you know, as I was going through the visa adjustment process, I wasn't able to work. I spoke to an immigration lawyer, and she basically said like, hey, you know, there's an estimated time here that you're probably going to have to wait about, you know, maybe like 8 months to receive your work permit and start working. And how can I spend 8 months without working with a baby on the way? I think after going through so many experiences like that, and a lot of financial experiences as well, instead of being like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like just overthinking and just like worrying so much about it. I looked at it as more of a challenge than anything. I was like, oh, okay, so this is how, the universe wants to test me. Okay, no, it's not going to be like this. It's going to be my way. So, go into 2024, I made a determination that I was going to start working by, I think, I was like kind of planning a little bit in my head, and I was like, okay, I'll find a job by May, and then maybe by, June, I'll start working, like the latest. I had a little bit of money saved up, so I was kind of like pacing myself out, that first semester of the year. But I was like, by June, I'm going to start working. So this is January, I submitted my application and all of that. So with that, I'm like, with Buddhism, it's like, it's prayer and action. So, I was, taking action, but I was also praying a lot, chanting a lot of Daimoku. Just doing the different things that we do in the SGI, participating in activities, trying to, support other members as well. Yeah, I think maybe a month after, end of February, I received my work permit. And that was just, such a relief. So I was like, okay, first part is here. Like, but I still didn't have the job. I had the permission to start working. So, the second part of the challenge is here. But I was still like kind of sticking to that date. I was like, okay, I'm going to find something. At the time, I was just doing like food deliveries and different things, like just to, bring some cash in while I was looking for, a full-time job. And nothing was kind of happening at the time. And I was like, am I coming up on another, deadlock? And so I was like chanting more, and also, getting some advice from some of my Buddhist friends. And there's this one Buddhist study material, this one letter that Nichiren Daishonin, the founder of this Buddhism, wrote. I think it's Letter to Nikki. I think it's what it's called. And it talks about this... It basically talks about like a journey of travelers, and it talks about like their journey from Kamakura to Kyoto takes 12 days. If you travel for 11 but stop on the last day, how can you how will you be able to admire the moon over the capital? So I was like really just praying with that mentality, like with everything that happened before I got here was just believing until the end and just pushing until the end. And with the baby on the way, I made a determination that I wanted to find a remote job, something that would allow me to be home and be with my baby and support, my family, and, just enjoy that aspect of it. Sometime in May, I think mid-May, I received a message from a recruiter on LinkedIn. And she was like, hey, we think you'd be great for this job. Like, here's the information. Check it out. If you like it, apply. So I checked it out. I was like, okay, I think I can do this. So I applied for it. They liked my resume. They sent me a few like assessments. I took the assessments, did the whole process thing. And then they scheduled an interview with me. And that was kind of like the final interview. I was like, oh, okay. So
wow.
And everything moved really fast. So I was like a little bit suspicious. Oh my God, this is moving a little too fast, for my liking.
Yeah.
So I did an interview, and then right there at the very end of the interview, they just offered me the job officially, on the spot. And I was like, whoa. So I, got all their information and looked at everything, and I was like, you know what? I mean, even though it feels a little weird that everything happened so fast, I think from the moment that person reached out to me to, the projected start date was less than 2 weeks. I've never been through such a fast process, and I haven't heard of many people that have. So I was very much, like, what is this going on? What's happening here? But I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I was chanting about. Like, I wanted something like at this time, and, this is what I need. It was a remote job, very flexible with the hours and everything. And so just absolutely perfect for, what I wanted and what I needed at the time. And so I, accepted the offer, started that same week. And yeah, next month is going to be a whole year since I started working there, end of May. So
and you made it right before your deadline.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, that was the deadline. So, it's here. I can complain, I threw it out there. The universe picked it up. We made it happen.
You really run right up to the deadline with these things. I'm finding.
A little bit of a procrastinator.
But you can like really know how to fight to the last minute, which is so encouraging. Like there's so many folks I know that like, yeah, there's sort of this like maybe this is my deadline, and if I'm getting close to it, and maybe I haven't met it yet, but you get to a certain level of closeness and you're like, well, I guess it's not even happening. You know, like that last stretch, sometimes people, I think it's really hard to push through that final as you get closer and closer. It's like scarier and scarier.
Yeah.
So that was like, 2 weeks for that process. Before they reached out to you, were you like starting to freak out at all? Like, oh no, my personal deadline is coming up and I don't have anything yet.
I mean, I wasn't freaking out. I mean, certainly stressed,
Okay.
you know, to a certain point.
Yeah.
But I was really trying to, you know, again, like in Buddhist practice, it almost feels sometimes like you're just taking your faith to the next level and the next level.
Yes.
And so I just kind of felt at the time like my back was so against the wall. And I was like, okay, I mean, I've been able to use this practice in so many situations in my life before. And I've seen this, you know, work for me in so many different ways. I, you know, had a lot of faith that, you know, it will work again. And so I think like after everything that I went through, I already like, I never look at, you know, an obstacle that's coming up as like, oh my God, will I be able to overcome this? Will I be able to, you know, kind of looking at it that way. And, you know, sometimes like the other thing too is that, you know, when you chant, sometimes things don't happen exactly the way you want them to, or at the time that you thought they would. But you know, no prayer goes unanswered in Buddhism. So when you chant and you know that desire is so strong in your heart, I really do believe that you know things happen exactly the way they're supposed to happen. You know in the timing, you know the perfect timing as well. So everything happened to be just perfect. In that situation, and I'm very thankful for it. It's been also just you know an incredible opportunity, this job, and it's been great to be able to do the things that I you know wanted to do before the baby got here. So I'm just really enjoying all of that.
Wow. Enjoying like new job, fatherhood, newlywed, like wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Going from like this really deep, challenging year to have just 1 year later be like, sounds like one of the most joyful. I mean, that's just so encouraging. I already asked maybe like, you know, some of your learnings, but is there any, you know, last thing you would say just about like seeing your life change so much in, you know, the last couple of years, like anything in particular that you've really learned from that?
Yeah, I think, one of the main things that I kind of reflected on was just this idea of, you know, everything happened so fast within, you know, those 2 years. And, you know, both years actually had a lot of ups and downs. Like I said, you know, 2023, definitely the most, I don't want to say the worst year of my life, but definitely the most challenging year of my life. And 2024, I mean, even the end of 2023 and then into 2024, being the absolute best year of my life. There were really good things happening both years, and there were really challenging things happening, you know, those both years. So, you know, the worst year wasn't all bad, and the best year wasn't all good, you know. So I think just understanding that life is very dynamic like that, and that, you know, we really need to look at, you know, the good and the bad as one. I think you're really able to just enjoy more of, you know, what there is to enjoy, and just really focus on the opportunities that are out there for us to, you know, continue growing, continue advancing, and just always remember to, I think my favorite writing of Nichiren Daishonin is winter never fails to turn to spring. And so just, I mean, that phrase is kind of self-explanatory, but just the idea that, you know, winter never goes back to autumn, you know, it always turns to spring. So, you know, I've kept that in my heart since I was young, because that was actually also my mom's favorite passage. And so, you know, just really carrying that in my heart that, you know, no matter how difficult the situation is, no matter how challenging those times are in your life, spring is coming. So, you know, just being able to power through that with, you know, not by yourself, but, you know, with your friends, with the SGI family, with your own Buddhist practice, having all of these different tools in your toolbox really help you get through all of that, and on to the next challenge, because it's not, the good thing about this passage too is that we don't stay in the spring forever. There's another winter coming down the line. Which is, it kind of brings you back down to earth, so just knowing that the obstacles will come again, but, then another spring will come. So it's just this cycle of constant growth, constant learning, and just constantly improving yourself,
Oh, that was amazing. So my last question for you is just, what piece of advice you would give to somebody who feels like they're currently going through like the most challenging year of their lives, and maybe they feel like, man, this winter has been happening all year long.
I think just even thinking about the conversation that we just had, and reflecting on everything I just shared, there seems to be a theme of not giving up until the end, and just really like pushing through. But I think the key thing too is that it's really hard to power through situations like that without your village there for you. And so, we just kind of have to remember too that we're not alone, in all these endeavors. Other people are also struggling with so many things. We don't need to compare people's problems and struggles, but everybody is going through something. Everybody has their own thing that they need to transform in their lives. And so remembering that, we all connect on a deeper level, on that human level, I think allows us to kind of, build together, really tackle these problems together, and, using your community to your advantage as well, to be able to, when the days that you don't feel like you can, that, they'll be there to tell you that you can, it's just that doubt, it's just the fear, the different things that kind of come up, and they're normal too in the process. But just having that kind of support around you and pushing through it, you see that, you're actually able to overcome whatever it is that you're going through. With many years of practice, you just come to see that you become an example for yourself of how this practice works. And sometimes we kind of get caught in the moment as well of everything that's happening, and we forget to look back and look at all the things that we already went through. I know so many people that, did some incredible things, and when I see them struggling with a little something like currently, I'm like, hey, but like, look at what you did. And, I'm trying to do that more, like talking to myself as well. Like I look at what's in front of me, and I forget about all the growth that already happened, all the victories that already happened, developing that kind of consistency, that daily, I think the daily Buddhist practice is so key in developing that strength. To continue advancing no matter what, continue fighting, continue, working for your own happiness and for the happiness of the people around you. So it'll get better.